Hello and welcome to the Voice of Liberty podcast. My name is Henry Conley. Tonight, I want to talk statues. I want to talk about monuments. I want to talk about history. I want to talk about what it all means. Over the last few weeks, a hot topic in the social media realm, in real life, has been discussions on removing statues and monuments, which represent a time in history that should not be celebrated. A hot topic has been removing things that memorialize the Confederacy. We've seen statues and monuments towards Confederate generals, towards Confederate soldiers being taken down, put into storage to be determined where they have to go. And of course, this has people fired up. This is erasing history to people. This is ignoring history to certain people. This is people's heritage being attacked, so they think. In Philadelphia, we had a statue of former mayor and police commissioner Rizzo removed, and it got people fired up. We see statues and monuments of Christopher Columbus being taken down, torn down. The Brits did it, right? They tossed it into a harbor. And this topic really has a lot of people talking right now. But I want to expand on this topic a little bit. And I'm going to expand on it in a minute. The first piece of this, statues, monuments being taken down, put into storage, and determined where they have to go. Things that memorialized these horrid parts of our history, the conversation is shifting. It's finally hitting the point where we're going, is this something that belongs in the public eye, in the public square, on our city streets? Or is this something that belongs somewhere else? I, along with many other people, we reference Germany because the arguments of Southern heritage being linked to the Confederacy can easily be equated to Germany and its Nazi Germany roots. In Germany, you do not see the swastika or the Nazi flag flying. You don't see memorials to Adolf Hitler or Himmler or any Goebbels or any of the famous known Nazi war criminals. You don't see monuments towards Nazi soldiers. Why? Because Germany recognizes that that dark point in its history is not one to be celebrated, one to be memorialized. In fact, the only memorial you will find is those of the concentration camps. Memorials to those who were harmed, who were injured, and who were killed by that dark, turbulent time in their history. Where will you find the swastika? Where will you find things relating to Nazi culture? Where will you find the Nazi flag? Museums and textbooks. Because that is where history is taught. It's not taught in the streets. It's not taught via a statue. It's taught through museums where there is a yearning for education. It's taught in the history book where there's a yearning for education. That's how you prevent history from repeating itself, by teaching it where it's actually going to be learned. Flip over to the United States, where we have statues to Confederate generals, to Jefferson Davis. We have statues to Confederate soldiers who've fallen and died. Those aren't places to be learned. There is no placards in front of them where there is a chance for education to occur. They are memorials. They are idolizations of those people who defended a horrid and dangerous time in our history. If you want to teach culture via these things, then they belong in the history books. They belong in the museums. They do not belong in our public squares. If you want to build memorials to the Confederate times, then the only proper memorial to build would be one honoring those who died because of what the Confederates did. Memorials honoring slaves, memorials honoring slaves that were lynched, memorials honoring those who risked their life to run the Underground Railroad. Now, let's talk about moving into another thing here, because this is one little minuscule part of American history that is idolized through memorial. But there are hundreds of other memorials out there that exist that need to be looked at, that need to be re-examined and determined if they are worth their weight for the pain they cause. The one I'm going to focus in on is partially linked to what's going to happen there next weekend. Next weekend, Donald Trump will visit this memorial, which he has stated he hopes to be the fifth face of. Donald Trump is visiting Mount Rushmore. Mount Rushmore, of course, is adorned with four faces: that of Washington, Jefferson, Lincoln, and Roosevelt. These four faces, they are reflections of points in history that were deemed to be important. Washington for the founding of the country, Jefferson for the framing of the country, Lincoln for the freeing of the slaves, Roosevelt for the Industrial Revolution. But there's a dark history here. You see, Mount Rushmore is solely a structure that just dominates the power that the white man holds over a minority. How do I say this? How can I say this? What am I getting at? Well, the mountain that's known as Mount Rushmore was originally known as the Six Grandfathers, or Cougar Mountain. The land that it's on was stolen from the Lakota tribe. The land it's on was stolen from the indigenous people of the United States in order for the faces of four white men to be carved and blown into the surface. The land was hijacked by us. Ignore the fact that we had a treaty with the Lakota tribe guaranteeing them the rights to that land. We have one of the greatest symbols of white dominance over minorities. Now, the faces on it, they can't be bad, can they? They are, though. Washington and Jefferson, they both held slaves, and many argue that Washington freed the slaves in his will. That's wonderful. That's great. Why didn't he do it sooner? Washington and Jefferson both argued that all men have inalienable rights, that all men are created equal, yet they owned men and women. It's famously said that Washington's front teeth were wood. As it turns out, they were stolen from slaves. Yet we idolize them on a mountain stolen from minorities. Lincoln, he abolished slavery. What did he do later? He approved the hanging of 38 Dakota men in Minnesota after a violent conflict with white settlers there. Roosevelt, it's been said that his literal statements were, "I don't go so far as to think that the only good Indians are dead Indians, but I believe 9 out of every 10 are." We want to talk about taking down systems that oppress people. We want to talk about removing things that remind people of the oppression they face. Mount Rushmore is the epitome of the white nation that this is putting the foot on minorities. What should happen with Mount Rushmore? Well, I'll make it simple. What should happen with Mount Rushmore is it should be handed back to the Lakota tribe, to the Cheyenne, the Omaha, the Arapaho, the Kiowa Apache. That land is the Black Hills. That is sacred to them. Lakota people know it as Pahasapa, the heart of everything that is. That land is theirs. Indian people had it stolen from them. Native Americans had it stolen from them. They had stolen from them in order to put a monument up for the people that oppressed them, the people that killed them. And there it is. Donald Trump wanting to put his face next to these four people. It's ironic to me that Donald Trump wants his face to be next to these four oppressive people. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln, and Teddy Roosevelt. See, Donald Trump thrives on oppressing people. Of course he would link himself to this. It's not ironic, it's planned. Turn the land back over to the tribes it was stolen from. Turn the land back over to the Native Americans whose sacred place that was. In the early 1900s, we stole it from them. We stole the Six Grandfathers. We stole Cougar Mountain from them in order to put up a monument to the people that oppressed them, the people that led to the demise of their culture. It's time we hand it back over to them. Allow them to decide what happens with it. If they want to keep the Washington or the Mount Rushmore up, then they can, and let them profit off of it. But if they decide that they want to tear it down, then they have every single right to tear that down and savor every single moment of it. Because those mountains led to oppression. Now, I'm not done with monuments. I'm not done with monuments to disgusting people. The Washington Monument. I've tripped over and accidentally said it a couple times during this video. The Washington Monument. Again, a monument to a man who preached equal rights, equal opportunity, every man being equal, yet owned slaves. That just doesn't ring well with me. The Lincoln Memorial. Though good intentioned because he freed slaves through the Emancipation Proclamation, again, he approved the hanging of 38 Dakota men. The Jefferson Memorial. Again, he owned slaves. It's time we take a look at every single monument that is out there and analyze whether it is actually representing something. So, what do we replace the Lincoln Memorial with? How about one to Rosa Parks? How about we honor her in a big way? What do we replace the Jefferson Memorial with? How about one for Martin Luther King Jr.? Honor him in a big way. What do we replace the Washington Monument with? How about one towards Malcolm X? And what do the Native American tribes replace Mount Rushmore with? Maybe one honoring their dead that died at the hands of those that formed the westward expansion of this country into their lands. See, I'm not upset that we're removing these pieces of history. I've said it once, I'll say it again. The Confederacy was 5 years. The Confederacy was 5 years of a traitorous nation that separated from this nation. The Confederacy has nothing that deserves honor. 2020, people are waking up. It's beautiful. But we have a lot to accomplish. We have a lot to do. And I, as someone who is a student of history, I know that the only place where history can be taught and learned is in the textbook and is in a museum. It's time to stop arguing whether these monuments and statues need to be removed. And it's time to just start doing it. It's time for us to take a stand. Be a voice of liberty. Awaken the voice of liberty.